to this new video in our series API Payment Integration with Paystack. In this video, we are going to connect our running Postgres instance from the last video to our application. So let's dive right in. And I'll start installing those Postgres dependencies. So use npm install pg. Also require pghstore and then of course Postgres. So next, to set up Sequelize and TypeScript, we'll need the following: Sequelize, reflect metadata, Sequelize, TypeScript, of course. So these are all specified in the documentations. Finally, we'll need to make use of our environment variables in our code. We will need to install the .env package, and then I'll hit enter. So the .env package helps to load the environment variables from the .env file into process.env. So I'll just pause the video and wait for the package to install. So the installation is completed. We can now move back to VS Code. From the Sequelize TypeScript documentation, we would need to modify tsconfig JSON. Right, we need to add some options to compiler options. The first one is target. So we'll set that to ES6. All these are contained in the Sequelize TypeScript documentation. Next, you need experimental decorators. Set that to true. And finally, we will need to add the emit decorator metadata and set that to true also. We'll save that. So I think it would be nice to create an object that holds all our environment variables so we can easily import and use them in our application. So let's go ahead and create a file, config.js. So I have created that file, config.ts, and at the top of the file I've imported .env, and to mix it .env we need to configure it. So I've configured it here, specifying the path to the .env variable in our application. Next, I'll create an object mapping each attribute to the environment variables. So we'll have the db host mapping to process.env Postgres host, the db user mapping to the Postgres user from the env variables. We'll have the db password mapping to the Postgres password, db name mapping to the Postgres db name, and then we export these config so we can use it within our application. Now we have all we need to set up our database connection with Sequelize. So let's do that by creating a utility function. To do this, we create a file in utils database.ts. In this file, I've created a connection to our database using Sequelize by creating an instance of Sequelize and passing in our database connection credentials of host, username, password, and database, and not forgetting to specify the database dialect, here in this case Postgres. So we've also added a models here, which is a path to where all our models will lie. So this will help Sequelize to synchronize our models to our database. And at the end of the file, we've exported that connection so that we can make use of it within our application. For this application, we will need a donation model. Let's create one. So I've created a donations model file in a models directory as we specified earlier in our Sequelize connection, that all our models will lie in the models directory. So next, I'll start by defining the model class. So export class donation, which extends model from Sequelize TypeScript. But this, we need to decorate this with at table decorator, and this will be imported from Sequelize TypeScript also. And here we'll specify the table name, which will be donations, and we also need it to have timestamps, so we'll set that to true. So this ensures that we'll always have the created at and updated at timestamps whenever we create any record in this table. So next we specify all the columns we will need using the at column decorator from Sequelize TypeScript. Okay, we'll also specify the type, the data type for this column using the data type from Sequelize TypeScript, and this will be a string because it will be a string, and we always want this to be provided, so allow null will be false, and this column will be name. Next, to create another column email, which will be a string, and let's decorate that with the at column decorator and specify type. So I'll just go ahead and create that behind the scenes. So I've added the email column, and it's actually going to be a type of string and allow it's required. Next, I have the amount, which will be a number, which will be an integer, right, and is also required. Finally, we have this payment reference, which will come from the payment service we'll be using for this particular tutorials, for which is Paystack. So we'll have a unique reference for every transaction that's made to Paystack. We'll also store that here just for reference purpose. If you've stayed tuned to this point, great job. We now have our Sequelize set up with models connected to it. Finally, we need to modify our entry file to run Sequelize sync to sync all defined models to DB. Let's switch over to the index.ts file. Here, let's modify this to use the variable from our config, that's the application port, the app port. So I'll start by creating a variable const port, which should be config from our config file, which should be the app port, or 3000 as our fallback. So we'll change this to port, and here use template string, and then inject that in, inject the variable, the port variable in here, paste this. So to have this out of the way, let's create a function called start server, which actually called the connection to our database. So this function will be an async function because the connection function is actually an async function. So since the next function, we need to wrap it in a try catch block. So have this catch error. Just console log this error if this console error, there's an error. So in our try, we need to call connection dot so this connection will come from our DB. Just need to import that here, and there's an async function. Let's just await it to ensure that it doesn't run anything else. We wait for that connection first. Next we need to start our application. So have app dot, so all we just need to do is just move this in there. So he makes the connection and syncs it before he actually calls app.listen and starts our server. So I think this looks good. Next we just need to call this start server function here. Let's run our app to ensure it's still working as expected. So move over here, we'll ensure that Docker is up and running. Then we'll run the docker compose command, docker compose up command to run all our services. So started Postgres, started PGAdmin, started the online payment application. So Postgres is up now. Our online payment is also up, and we can see that our server is up and running on port 5000. Yeah, so we can see that our PGAdmin is also up. We can actually go and check our PGAdmin, see that our database has been created. We'll switch over here and we'll go to localhost 8080. We actually specify this port in the docker compose YAML file for our PGAdmin service, and we added a default user email and a password in configuration. So just using the same thing, right? So here I just register a server. So I'll call it online payment local, and then I'll add our connection details here. So our host is Postgres, that's the name of our service. Next, the user is Postgres and the password is Postgres as specified. So here we'll have our schema. We move into the schema, you see the tables that we've created. Yes, I'll have our donations table here. So we can look at the columns. So we'll have ID, name, email, amount, payment, reference, created at, and updated at. So these are all the columns we have created for our table. So that's been reflected here. So next you can open and see the data in it, right? So it's actually empty now because we've not actually added any records there yet. So thank you very much for staying tuned to this video. So in this video we have explored Docker and how to use it to set up a network of services for our database application and database client like PGAdmin. We have also been able to set up and connect Sequelize to our database. In the process, we have also synced all our defined models, which is in this our case just donations, to the database, which can be seen by exploring the client like I showed you just now. So I hope you find this video helpful. See you in our next video. Thank you. Kindly click the subscribe button and turn on post notification to support and encourage the channel to create more feature focused contents. Thank you.